into the party wagon and hold on to your pizza. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Epic Tales from the Sewers. I am your host, Justin, here with my co-host, Eric. How you doing, Eric?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing there, Justin?
Wonderful. I'd like to say just how fantastic you sound with that new microphone.
Thank you. I know I needed one.
Eric is coming live to us from the Turtle Cave down there. Today, we have a very special guest, as all of our guests are special. This is an extra special version for you. We have comic artist Mike Rooth. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man, we were just having fun before talking about a little bit of wrestling. So you are coming to us from the home of a lot of our favorite wrestlers, Canada.
That's right. Yeah. We've made some good ones up here.
I agree. I know we were talking about like Bret the Hitman Hart and stuff like that. So I wonder if that'll come up in the comics, in the comics discussion. I think that it is. It's going to. But Mike, so I have your pedigree here because I was looking it up for some of the things that you've worked on, and I have that you have worked with Swamp Thing, Red Sonja, and Conan. Looks like a bunch of Conan. Besides doing Dungeons and Dragons, The Spine of the World, Image Comics, I have Nocetera, Department of Truth, and Ice Cream Man. And Ice Cream Man is a fantastic book if anyone's ever read it. Dark Horse, one of my personal favorites, Usagi Yojimbo, and of course Captain Canuck, which is a great book, and The Last Ronin. So at least 3 covers. I know you did number 1, number 4, and upcoming number 5, right?
Yep. I actually weirdly did 2 number 5s because they reprinted my number 1 in full color at Big Country Comics. They originally that number 1 cover that I did for Big Country Comics was going to be full color. And when I got it scanned and started working on it, the guys called me and they're like, "Hey man, you want to go with that kind of retro blue from like the Mirage issue 3?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, we could do that. It also means a lot less work." So I did it in the retro blue instead, and everyone loved it. But I still had this burning itch inside of me to finish it in full color because that's how I saw it in my head. So I just put the time in and finished it in full color anyway for my own purposes.
So cool.
We asked IDW to give us permission to make large posters that we could give away. We weren't going to sell them. We were going to give them away to people who bought the book, and we couldn't get permission for that. So I colored it anyway just to have it in full color. And then little did I know, short time after that, they contacted Justin at Big Country and said, "Hey, you want to make this a number 5 in full color?"
Oh, wow.
So
what's the legality on something like that then? Is that something that's going to be available to you down the road to make prints for when you go to cons?
Well, that's the misconception. I think a lot of people think that when you're working in the industry as a pro comic artist that, you suddenly have, this open license to create any kind of fan art that you want based on those characters. But that's actually the opposite is true. So I've always tried to abide by the rules when it comes to my profession. So I noticed right away when issue 1 of Last Ronin came out, I saw lots of dudes making like phone cases and all kinds of like extra side product. And I was like, how did they get permission for that? Because my contract was very clear about that. And, when you have to go through Nickelodeon,
yes,
Hasbro,
Viacom,
and, the creators themselves, and you have all these hoops to go through, and everyone's got a hand on this project. I just feel like maybe some people subscribe to the notion that asking for forgiveness is better, or begging for forgiveness is better than asking for permission, but that can really screw you. And I actually had to, I didn't call anybody out, but there was a couple of artists I contacted and said, "Hey man, I see you're making Turtles lunch boxes. I'm just curious how you got permission to do that." And they're like, "What do you mean permission? Why would I need to get permission? I made the artwork." And I'm just like, "All right, well now I got to give you an education about how the business of this works." You know what I mean? So like, I mean, fan art is like 98% of what you see in the artist alleys. And there was a time before I was published when I was one of those dudes as well. But the real hilarious part is that once you start working for those big countries, those options get cut off from you. Like I can't make Swamp Thing prints anymore. Not that I was ever making Swamp Thing prints, but now that I've actually done that and become part of the Warner Brothers, talent roster, it's just not an option for me, and I'm okay with that because I've done the real deal. I've got the real thing in print, and I've become part of the history of it. But yeah, I mean, that was the end of the fan art for me when it came to that. Not that I was doing a ton of Swamp Thing fan art or prints or anything like that anyway. But I mean, I think the gray area is where it comes to original art. I can bang out sketches of turtles and stuff all day. They're just one-offs. But the idea of making product without permission, I've seen people get pinched pretty badly for that in my profession, because I mean I've been a pro illustrator now for 25 years, but the first 15 years of that was spent just looking for, or the first 10 years anyway, was spent just working in every possible illustration outlet I could find, whether I was doing children's books or medical illustrations for magazines or editorial illustrations for the Atlantic Monthly or things like that. I mean, my career has kind of been all over the place, mainly because I was told I was never going to be any good at comics. So I started looking around and for other ways I could get published, and then, I had sorry, I'm kind of rambling, but I had a
it's all good. Don't worry about it.
I had a fairly long career doing children's books here locally for a publisher. We did a lot of Scholastic books and things like that. And then one day that job just came to an end. They had a shift in their department. They called me and said they had to lay off the entire art team. And I was 35 years old, and I was like, I got to start over at scratch. I had no recourse to even getting any kind of social assistance. I was afraid I was going to lose my home and lose all my, everything. So I just said, fuck it. And I started going to like my local comic book shop. And I basically just said, hey, can I sit here and draw all day? And I tried to sit and just kind of meet people that way. And I would do sketches. I'd trade sketches for a bowl of French fries, man. Like I was pretty hungry. My wife was carrying the load of everything, there's paying the bills and taking care of it, while I was basically restarting my whole self at 35. But I knew I wanted to get back into comics. I wanted to at least take a stab at it. And so I started to just kind of, I started going after comic conventions. And then I would go right to the people who ran the conventions and be like, hey, you guys had a cool poster last year, but I could make you a cooler poster. How about you give me a free table in Artist Alley and I'll do a baller of a poster, or your program guide, or your badge designs, or whatever you want. I'll do that all for free. All I'm asking for is a table at your show to sit there. And so I started getting into conventions that way. And that's when my career really started to blow up, because I was able to meet other creators and find out how to get in and find out how to just try to get my work out there. Hey, can I do a pinup for your book? Hey, can I do a pinup for your book? And just try to get published, and then try to create a body of work that would now lead to maybe getting covers or getting things like that. So yeah, it's been a weird, wild journey. It's certainly not been a straight line to get here. That's for sure. But yeah, the legality around other things that come from creating, working in the comics and working with certain properties, I just don't play that game. So like I asked IDW for permission. Hey, can we make big 18 by 24 posters of this cover so that we can give them away to people, or maybe we could auction them off for charity? Like, we literally were not looking to take a dime, but people said, oh, that would make a great poster. And I'm like, it would make a great poster.
Yeah, it would.
And I asked them, and they wouldn't permit it. And I said, okay, fair enough. I'm not going to go there. And everyone's like, oh, but you can make one for me, right? And I'm like, no. No, I can't.
You got to have respect for stuff like that. And I mean, we see that a lot. We run a Facebook group called Epic Shells. With that, one of the rules that we have is we're always crediting the artists. And I mean, there's always stuff that you see. It's like, oh, how'd that guy get that T-shirt, or how'd that get? They're taking stuff. Really can't be doing that if you want to be in the industry. I mean, there's always going to be scalpers and scabs and stuff like that.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things, Like I don't know, like I won't name any names, but I've seen guys who've worked on turtles and guys who are working on turtles who are making their own products, making their own stuff. And I can only assume these guys have gotten permission somehow. And that's cool, because, it's a funny thing, right? Like I just wouldn't want to be on the other side of that legal cease and desist letter or whatever, you know what I mean? And I mean, worst case scenario, you make prints, you make a bunch of money, and then you get the cease and desist letter that tells you to stop, and so you stop, and that's it. But it can go the other way too. I've seen people get destroyed by corporations for thinking. Oh yeah,
like Disney.
I mean, they were free to go ahead and do whatever they want. It's like you just can't. So I've always tried to play it safe that way. My youthful days of wild drinking and law breaking are behind me now. So I'm just trying to be a good boy and just grateful for the opportunities I've had. And I certainly don't want to burn any bridges that I've built,
Well, I'm curious, because you were talking about the color or the cover to Last Ronin #1. Did you get to keep any for yourself?
Of like the copies of the books.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the Big Country hooked me up with a bunch of books that I was able to give one to my mom and give one to my brother.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they usually
So
put
what to
aside
me?
10
Well, I don't know if you know this, but currently, if you were to look it up on eBay right now, a copy of that graded CGC 9.9 is actually going for $579.99 based on today's view. So that's and I even did the conversion rate, so that's $744.89 Canadian.
Yep, I know. It's one of those things. I see that stuff, and it's on one hand gratifying, and it also makes me very depressed. So what bothers me is when I'm at a convention and I'll have some guy give me a sob story about how he's got no money and could you just do a quick head sketch for me or something? And I'll be like, sure, there you go. I'll put it on a sketch cover like a Deadpool or something like that, and it will be on eBay in 3 hours. And I go, man, like so. Yeah, I don't know. I try not to spend a lot of time on eBay because I see people trying to flip my old artwork all the time, and it always just kind of breaks my heart when it's a collector. It's a guy who's like wanted a specific kind of like if you look on eBay right now, there's a Superman that I did years ago, and a guy wanted like kind of a dark looking Superman, like a brooding looking Superman, and so I did it for him, and I was a little bit late, so I gave like a couple days late. So I gave the guy a discount. I did it for $150 or something like that. And it was on eBay for $1,200 a week later. And I was just like, come on, man.
Did he get it?
Oh, he got it. Oh yeah, he got it.
Oh my God.
Put it on eBay immediately.
Wow. So basically you're underpricing yourself based on your talent.
I like giving artwork to people that I know are going to enjoy it, and I always I guess I fall for a lot of sob stories, but when I see them,
I don't think you could see mine. I've got a Tim Seeley behind me, and I've got a Michael Dooney. So they're not going any. Oh, and I have these. I don't know if do you know Fred Hembeck at all?
Yes, I know Fred Hembeck. That's gorgeous.
Yeah, and the newest one
is a wonderful man too. Love Tim.
Let's see. And this is that's the new one. So yeah. These I may be buried with them. We'll see.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, see, me personally, like I just Justin knows how I am. I'm a big time collector. I mean, you can look at the back of my
understatement.
It's completely understatement because I literally have a museum in my house. I mean, be honest with you, I'm very, very stingy. I just gave somebody a obscurity issue 3 for the podcast, and I'm like, that's kind of hard for me to give up. You know what I'm saying? Giving that away for free, and I have like 3 extra ones right now. So, wow. I mean, like me as a collector, I mean, I collect anything from the figures. I mean, like I said, I have a museum in my room of turtle stuff.
I love it.
It's painted like a sewer too. I don't know if you can see the ceiling.
It's painted like the turtle shell and everything. But
I love it. That's great, man.
But like me personally, like I am just a full-on genuine collector. I'm not looking to flip anything. Like I just can't do that to an artist. Like even if I do get something, like I got one of those securities for this certain amount of price, and I actually sold it just for a little bit over that price, because I wanted to cover shipping. Sure. It's just I can't see me doing that to somebody else. You know what I'm saying? Especially, like I really like your artwork. Like you give me the OG vibes with the turtles and stuff. And like if you was to give me anything like you gave me you hooked me up with the your first issue, and I'm like, man, I want that thing CGC'd, not because I want to sell it, no, because I want it put up, Yep. And that's just one of those things that I just want to seal, keep sealed type and keep for my collection.
Sure.
I'm not looking like to make extra money off of. No. Me, yeah,
he's actually looking to insulate his house with CGC copies of The Last Ronin #1.
Well, I got an issue 2. I got an issue 2.
Oh, okay. He's got 2 in there.
I got Ben Bishop's issue 2, and I got the first Turtle Free comic one in the issue 4 Mirage, second printing.
That's pretty sweet.
Now, Mike, are you reading Last Ronin as well?
I am. Yeah, I'm loving it. Yeah. I'll be honest, I was a Turtles fan going way back to the beginning. Probably, I think in '84 was the first Turtles comic I ever got. And I remember when they collected the Mirage books into the first graphic novels, like the color graphic novels. So my buddies and I went bananas for those. But my most treasured Turtles item, and I don't have it anymore, was I'd love to get another copy of it somewhere. There was a role-playing game, Palladium Games.
This comes up all the time.
Yeah,
This is exactly what Freddie
Strangers.
Williams said.
Man, that book was so epic because not only did it give us stats, we finally had game stats for the boys, but it actually it expanded on the idea of what other mutant animal options there could be, and how to play those kind of characters. And of course, the artwork inside was just brilliant. And I used to be an art teacher, like I'd go door to door, kind of teaching art to kids and stuff. And I had a bunch of these books because I was showing like. Turtles have always been big since then. Like that was before Turtle Mania. I mean, I think I was about 9 or 10 years old the first time I experienced the Turtles in '84, and then in '88 when the cartoon came out, I had a younger brother who went crazy for the cartoon. And so I got to kind of relive all that turtle stuff again. And I need, the cartoon, sure, it was a kid's show. It wasn't like the violent books that I loved, but you know what? It was just amazing for me to see this little indie book become this cartoon. And then of course the film, and then the flooding of toys, and then you guys know the story from there, like the generations of Turtles and iterations that have happened since then. I think it's fantastic. I think it is such an incredible success story for an independent comic book that really started out as two teenagers, like photocopying their shit together. Sorry, I probably shouldn't swear in your show. I don't know, but
let it slide. It's okay.
People photocopying, these guys photocopying their books and using old Zipatone techniques and things like that's the real hardcore stuff that I go crazy for. And I mean, I've loved those books since then. I haven't read Turtles in the past few years until I got hired to do that Jenica book. And then I was like, man, I've heard this IDW run is fantastic. So I've grabbed a bunch of them, and it is really good stuff. And I'm enjoying the Ronin, man. I did feel like there was a wild leap between issue 3 and issue 4 in terms of space and time. Like there seemed to be like, I know they got to push towards the big battle, right? So I get that, but it really did feel like a bit of skip a few beats to get from 3 to 4. But you know what? I'm into it. Like it's we got to tell a story in 5 issues. That is not easy to do. So
48 pages too. So it's like it's like 5 issues, but it's also like 10 issues.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah, it's a ton of work going into those things too. It would have been really interesting to see how that series would have looked if Andy Kuhn had stayed on for the entire run. Because I'll be honest with you, when I saw that first 6-page teaser thing for the Ronin that he had drawn, it lit me up like Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns lit me up. There was something about it that made me go, oh, this guy needs to draw the Turtles. This I've always been a fan of Andy's, but like seeing that particular little 6-page vignette kind of ripped my head apart. So when I found out like the Escorza brothers were coming in, loved their work too. I thought that was awesome, but I'm really a big Andy fan. So I was like, man, I was kind of disappointed, but the artwork is still so great. I can't complain anything about this book. I love it.
I agree. I mean, I had always hoped that there was more to it. I mean, I know he did like the first 6 pages or something like that, and then they just completely redid it. Yeah. I don't know the exact story on why he had to redo it. If it was just contractual, if they got someone else to do it.
I just heard it was like a personal issues kind of thing. I didn't honestly hear. I didn't hear any details on that. So yeah.
I think that what we got is very true to kind of the Mirage style to it. It's very Frank Miller, like absolutely. Like you can look at this and be like, these guys, they cut their teeth on Frank Miller. So
for sure.
Like, some of the scenes you look at, you're like, that looks like an Eastman or a Frank Miller or something like that too. So it's good. Like it looks good. It's palatable. Even with the jumps and like the little bit of plot holes and stuff like that, it's still so damn enjoyable. Mm-hmm. And I tell people, when they're talking like, what's up with the Last Ronin? I'm like, this is that time in the world where Ninja Turtles are the most important comic book. And that hasn't happened since like maybe the 80s. maybe the 90s at some point, not even though, but like since 1980s, this is the most important comic book. It's bigger than Batman,
Yeah, well, this is what I mean. When I heard issue 1 outsold Batman that month, I was like, oh yes, this is the golden age that we're in right now. Again,
came out the same week as 3 Jokers, which was huge. So, or the week after, I think, but still,
unbelievable. It made me so happy. And that was one. It's weird. So I don't know. I feel like this is going to probably sound weird, but I feel like I've known about the Last Ronin coming since about 1987. And
oh, wow.
I don't know
okay.
If I heard those guys talking about it, or if I read an interview back then, or if I've had it in my head that those guys have had this story to tell since then, and they were going to tell the story that took place far in the future about the last surviving turtle getting revenge for his dead brothers and his father. And I don't know why, and maybe it's just a weird fever dream I had or something. But when I heard the Last Ronin was coming, it was like I knew it was already coming. I'm like, oh, finally. And I was like, what do you mean finally? And I'm like, oh, they've been planning this since 87. And I was sure it was going to be Raphael. I was 100% sure, because I think maybe I got my wires crossed back then thinking about that body count book and Grizzly one. And I don't know if that's what it was, but something in my head said that this story is going to take place. And then I heard, I think it was Eastman was on the Comics Kayfabe guys show. And I think he was saying something like, yeah, we had to delay this story for all the years that Peter and I weren't talking. We had to delay this story. The story was originally set in 2017, but we couldn't tell that story because we wrote it back in 87. And then in 2017, we still didn't have flying cars, and we have flying cars in the book. So we had to set the story even further in the future. And also it made up for the 25 years that they weren't even speaking to each other. Right. So it's just a really weird history around that. And, I kind of let the guys at Big Country Comics know, like after I did the Jenica cover, I was like, I don't know if you guys have heard about it, but the Last Ronin's coming, and I got this feeling it's going to be a big book. And if you guys want to get a cover for that, I will do it for free. Like, just give me a chance at this. Let me get a chance at this. You know what I mean? And next thing you know, it was all suddenly rolling all together. And then there was 93 variants for the first issue or something crazy.
I think it was roughly 72, but it was 69 to start. But then there's other ones that come. And now I think with the exclusives that the Kevin Eastman one, the 5 covers, they just re-released these brand new printings of #1. So now we're up over 75.
Wow, it's going to be a beautiful trade paperback collected edition. I know that
it's going to be so good. I just hope that they have they do justice to the different covers. They could do just pages of that. It's pay extra for it. Okay, cool. Yep. I'll look at all of them.
Yep.
It'll be like the Hero Initiative when you look at that 100 book and you see all the different covers. I'm like, you could sell a book of just Last Ronin covers. That'd be great.
And you could, because I always think of the Preacher book when the Preacher ended after volume 9, and everyone was just itching for more Preacher. They said, well, we could release a whole trade paperback of just Glenn Fabry's covers, because Glenn did a cover for every single issue of that book, and they did, and I went and bought it too, because it was just beautiful. They could sell a whole trade paperback of just the variant covers. Absolutely.
Now, who's your favorite turtle? Do you have a favorite going way back? Is it still the same as it was?
I was always back when they were black and white comics, and we didn't know who was who unless they were holding their weapon in the frame. I was a Donatello guy, because I thought I just loved the bow staff. I got, I don't know, maybe it was just Eastman's drawings or something, but there was something about the way he'd have him leaping with the stick, and so he was always kind of my guy. And then when the cartoon came out and they made him kind of the brainiac of the group, and then I remember being kind of I think I was first attracted to Donatello as a guy with the stick, because I thought maybe he was the strongest, and I was always about loving the Thing or the Hulk. I love the big strong guys, so I assumed the guy with the biggest weapon must have been the strongest guy. And then that TMNT game book came out, the Palladium game book, and he's actually the weakest on the team. It's actually Raphael who's the strongest, and I was like, oh, well, shit, so then I started to think about it in a different way. Of course, I'm still, a 12-year-old at this point, but yeah, I think I love all of them, but I'll always have a special place for Donatello for sure.
That's really cool. I'm a Leo guy, and Eric is a Raph fan. So, one of the biggest Raph fans I know. So
yeah, I know that my buddy Justin at Big Country there, he's one of my very, very good friends. He guessed right away that it was going to be Michelangelo. He's like, I'm sure it's going to be Mikey. And I'm like, it's not going to be Mikey. It's going to be Raphael for sure. They've been planning for Raphael since 1987. I know because I'm old. And sure enough, it was Raphael, or it was Michelangelo. And I loved that I just thought that was such a great reveal. And then, of course, I got, you couldn't spoil it, of course. And then like a month later, I did some fan art that ended up inspiring my cover for issue 4 that I did, where it's got the Ronin leaping off the roof, and then the 3 boys that are gone are standing the original lineup from the original cover on the back cover. And everyone was giving me a hard time with that. Oh, you spoiled it for me. And I'm like, oh, it's been out for 3 months, brother. Like, read the book, man.
It was that like a week later, people were like, guess who the Last Ronin is? So
people can't wait 5 minutes to spoil the Spider-Man movie. I've already had that blown for me. I'd love to go and see that, but I'm kind of like, I guess I could watch it at home now. So
I haven't heard anything, luckily. I just heard that there's 2 post-credit scenes, so
Yeah. I won't wreck anything for you. I still gotta go see it,
I mean, that's the thing. Like, a lot of people get upset about like Star Wars and Marvel movies and stuff like that. I'm like, guys, it's based on a comic. Like, I know what happens in the Infinity Gauntlet. Pretty sure they're gonna win. It's like
yeah.
It's all about how we get there. So it's just pretty interesting. Well, I wanted to mention that you had a Kickstarter coming up for a comic called Dodge, which looks really awesome. Like you're doing looks like a lot of homages to like G.I. Joe, the great real American hero G.I. Joe stuff. What can you tell us about Dodge a little bit?
Okay, so Dodge is a story written by Matt Nixon, who's a writer out of Kentucky, who did stuff for Wolverine and Conan back at Marvel years ago, and he also did a story called Retcon for Image Comics in 2017. And Retcon's a story about kind of like a paramilitary group that specializes going up against evil forces in the world that are not natural. So it's kind of like
a BRPD Hellboy.
Yeah, kind of. It's got a little bit of that vibe. It's like Hellboy meets G.I. Joe, kind of. So a character is introduced in that book, and his name is Chris the Animal Dodge, and he's a werebear. And he can't control it once he becomes a bear. That's it. That's like someone dropping a nuke in a city when he turns into a werebear. So it's a really amazing story that Matt's done. It's really got some wild ideas. So the character Chris Dodge kind of showed up in that book was drawn by Toby Cypress. If you can go out there and you can buy it from his website. I think he's just retcon.bigcartel.com. You can buy the first issue. You can buy the first 2 issues of Dodge there, but you can also buy the Retcon, which kind of launches it. And the whole thing about Retcon was kind of Matt's thumb to the eye to the big 2 companies, because he kind of hates the idea of a comic book that constantly reboots itself. Like, why do we have 11 Spider-Man #1s? Why do we have, why do we feel the need to reboot a thing? So he decided to say, screw it. And so Retcon reboots at the end of each arc, completely reboots. Same stories told in a different era or a different time or a different setting, but that's what it's about. So the story Dodge that I'm doing is actually the kind of the prequel of Retcon. It's kind of the origin story of Chris the Animal Dodge, and he really wanted it told in that there was a comic in the 80s, in the 90s from Marvel called The Nom. And he really wanted it to feel like The Nom. He wanted it to feel like that kind of, black and white, gritty, but that real 80s kind of like ink style. So he discovered me after I had done a ton of covers for Aftershock, and I was drawing lots of animals for Animosity covers. And he was like, I think this guy'd be great for drawing Dodge. So he contacted me and we lined it up. And, without going into too much detail, it's been an amazing journey, but it's been a difficult couple of years because we've both had some setbacks, which have kind of hampered the project somewhat. But I'm still slugging away at it. I was actually going to be inking some pages tonight. Issue 3 is late. It's my fault, but it took us a couple months to fulfill our Kickstarter for issue 2, and we rocked that. We got that all fulfilled on time. And then, just with COVID and everything, it's been so hard to kind of get into the grind and make ends meet that other jobs come in and I'm not in a position to say no. So, Dodge was it's always been steadily going, but it's been very slow progress, just fitting it in between cover gigs and stuff. So yeah, it's about a werebear commando battling evil Russian forces. The story takes place in 1985, kind of Cold War era. Matt pitched it to me. He's like, I'm doing a comic book about a werebear with a Black Sabbath t-shirt and an M60. You want to draw this book? And I'm like, well, yes, because I don't want anyone else to draw this book but me.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And that was it. And all the bad guys are werewolves. So Matt's been amazing to work with. The project's been tough. I'm not going to lie. Going from doing pure covers to going to interiors again. Like I did lots of interiors for Scholastic. I did actually 40 graphic novels for Scholastic books between 2004 and 2007. I did something like 40 books in 3 years, but they were all very like kid based and educational based. And it was like, they would give me a PDF of all the pages laid out with blank boxes, and I would just draw what they told me to draw in the box. So there wasn't a whole lot of thought process going in there. I was just kind of like a machine that filled in the boxes with artwork. So when it came time to suddenly be given a raw script and have to break it down into pages, it definitely had to wake up some old muscles to do that. But I'm loving it. I just wish I was faster at it. I can knock out a cover in 2 days, but there's some pages that take me a week to draw because, it's a funny thing about comic books, like you're flipping through a comic book and you're really enjoying the story and you get taken away by the story, and each panel gets about 1.5 seconds of your attention, right? But what you don't know is that panel that you just flipped past, that's maybe a shot of a warehouse full of soldiers, and there's like a tank driving through the wall, and there's like people running over here, and there's a chain link fence in the background. And you just look at it and you accept it as the artwork that's on the page. But what you don't know is that panel that took you 1.5 seconds to scan with your eyeballs took me a week and a half to draw.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
exactly. I think there's a real disconnect there sometimes for people, and that's good. I mean, the reality is, if I hadn't spent that week and a half to draw that panel, then it would have looked wrong, and that would have been the thing the person remembered about that book experience, right? So, so it's one of those things where I try to be as complete and as accurate as I can, and if that takes time, then.
Hi, this is Adam, a.k.a. Casey Jones from Casey Jones Livewire, and you're listening to Epic Tales from the Sewers. Time for a knuckle sandwich, punk.
It's just the way it is. I also like having nice original pages when I'm done. So everything's done old school, old traditional tools. And I like to have a nice clean page at the end for collectors and things like that. But job number one is to get the book done. And it's just been difficult. It's just been a difficult juggling act the past year. Like everyone's going through that right now, though. So it's just the way it is. But yeah, the third book, I've just finished penciling the entire thing. Finally, I've got about 13 pages that all have ink on them, but they got to be completed and then colored and lettered and everything like that. We got a team to do that. We got Kaylin Nolasco is doing the colors, and Matt Krotzer is doing the lettering, and they're both geniuses at their trade. And I can't wait to see what they do with my pages. But yeah, we were hoping to do the Kickstarter this month. I don't know if that's going to happen just because we're getting so close to Christmas now. It might be a case where we have to wait until maybe end of January or February, or we might not even be doing a Kickstarter. It's hard to say what's going to go on. I heard Kickstarter might be going crypto, and I'm not sure.
Yeah, I just saw something on that too.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's going to migrate to Indiegogo at that point.
Yeah, I'm not really sure yet. We're going to figure it out some way. We're going to crowdfund it some way. And we'd had great success the last 2 Kickstarters. Like they didn't go crazy, but we got about 2 times what we asked for, which is good because, the rate of shipping is constantly going up and changing during mid-campaign very often. So all of a sudden your estimates are off and you got to eat a little bit more on your side for shipping and stuff. So, we've learned a lot with our first 2 Kickstarters for sure. I think the third one's going to be very similar to their second one. They're going to have a lot of art offerings and a lot of original art that's up for grabs. And I've done something like 30 covers this year for different companies. So I'm going to have lots of covers that I'm able to, I'm going to have lots of books they'll be able to offer as add-ons to help fund the book and stuff like that. So we'll make it happen. It's, it's a grind. And once we got that third issue out, then we can start going to publishers, because publishers won't really look at you if you have an idea and a couple of sketches. They want 3 issues in the bag minimum before you even get that interview. So, we were supposed to have everything all wrapped up in 2018, but it was just a tricky couple of years for me when I first started on Dodge. Just the bad luck train rolled through town, and I got on it, and kind of got run over by it for a couple of years, but yeah, it's coming. I feel like it's the best work I've ever done, but it's a bit of a slow process for me. I'm just being honest with you guys.
I don't know. I was looking at that cover that you did for Aftershock of the Maniac of New York. That is amazing.
Oh, thanks, man. Thank you.
That is such a cool book. I am a huge fan of Elliot Kalin, so
Yeah,
and I love his show, The Flophouse. So
I love Andrea's work too. It's just so good, and I mean, yeah. I'm a big fan of the Bunny Mask as well. I really enjoyed that. Aftershock, I've actually really liked a lot of their stuff. They've been getting a little bit of my money, and I like that the stories are usually about 5 or 6 issue arcs. Like it's not a huge investment. Usually, really cool stories being told, and then you have some breakout books like Animosity, which are just great.
Yeah.
That was a big game changer for me when I started getting covers for Animosity, because I did a couple of retailer covers, and then Aftershock just started hiring me directly, and it was just great, like to work directly for the publisher. That's always the dream, So did
they do Scout's Honor?
Scout's Honor, maybe.
I love that book.
They got over 100 titles now or something. So
they're really up and coming. They're good. They're like a Valiant, I think.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big Valiant guy, and I mean, you want to talk about collectability there, Eric. Valiant is like old school Valiant for the 90s. They have like error covers that are in gold foil and stuff like that. They're like thousands of dollars if you can find them. And the fan base is rabid. Yeah. But they're cool. They've got like this great sort of universe set up, and it's like Aftershock's got some awesome stuff. And I really like, and it's like the tiniest details, but like they use excellent cover cardstock. So it's like it just feels really good when you pick it up and hold the physical issue. And I'm like, who is it? Oh wow, Aftershock. All right,
Very satisfying to get my comics in the mail. I'm always like, man, they do a beautiful job on these. Like really, really nice job. Yeah.
I guess that's what I'm into now, as like an older collector. I'm like, well, it's not like the flimsy crap we had in the 90s. It's like it falls like, oh, this fell apart the first time I got coffee on it.
Oh yeah. And it's a couple of years ago too, where it seemed like everything I bought from Image, I'd be sitting at my desk and the covers would melt in my hands.
Yeah.
Like I'd be reading the comic in the summertime, and I'd close the book and I would look, and my fingerprints were burned into the cover stock. Like it was like, what the heck? Like what's
Marvel's
going on
doing that, man. It's just like I'm an avid collector of Daredevil. I've read every Daredevil comic probably since like Fall from Grace and all that, which was like 1988 or something. Yep. So like I'm reading it constantly, and the exact same thing you're talking about is happening, and I'm like, wow, I really like this, but I can't even hold it without gloves now. I'm like, guys, just spend a little more on the paper stock.
They didn't have to. And I think we're going to see a lot of weird covers coming in because of the paper supply chain right now. I mean, there's been some interesting things that I've seen happening. A lot of people are moving to heavier, glossier stock, which is good in some ways, but also weird in other ways. So like perfect example, like when sketch covers first came out in 2009, 2010, they were like trying to draw on glass. They were so slick and varnished. And I was like, unless you're like a Ken Lashley guy who can just kill it with a Sharpie marker, this is a tough thing to sketch on. Like you can't sketch on it with pencil because pencil won't stick to it. You can't erase off it because erasers will leave mark, but pencils won't. And oh my God, it was always, I ended up having to paint a lot of them because there was no other option,
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
And then, it's funny, like when the Last Ronin book came out, of course, I left lots of white space on my issue 1 because I knew there was going to have remark requests coming in. Well, I didn't know they were going to print the book on glossy. I didn't know it was so glossy that I was like, I'm going to have to rethink how I do everything now because I'm going to have to paint all of these, or I'm going to have to use some kind of special like whatevers, to work on it. And I thought that was about as extreme as it would go. I did work on one shiny black obscurity for a guy, and I did John. I did one for John. An April O'Neil. Yeah, an April O'Neil. Yeah. And I just used white paint because I didn't have any other option. Like I just straight up just did a white paintbrush and a brush, and that was it. And but the crazy thing was we did Winnipeg Comic-Con a couple of last month with Big Country Comics. and it was an amazing show. And we got permission from DC to launch our Swamp Thing book at the show, which came out 3 or 4 days before issue 9 was on the shelf. So we were super excited about that. We get to like actually do a Swamp Thing launch at the show, and we were so excited. And the first customer that came to me to buy a Swamp Thing, I was so excited. I picked the Swamp Thing up, I took it out of the sleeve, I wrote my name with a Sharpie, and I watched my name evaporate and disappear off the cover, because the paper they used for the cover stock on the Swamp Thing is gorgeous, but it is so glossy that Sharpies won't even stick to it.
It's like those 100-page specials that you see that they have. It's like that. Yeah. That's a Black Label book, right?
The new one's a Black Label book. This one just their main.
Oh, just
one.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the Swamp Thing Green Hell is the Black Label book, which I was this close to getting a cover for, but there was a little bit of a snafu on the accounting end of that, and there was a miscommunication. I thought I was doing a cover for issue 1. They thought I was doing a cover for issue 2. The retailer thought I was doing one for issue 1. And what it all came down was the retailer ultimately didn't want to do an issue 2. They wanted to do an issue 1. Mm-hmm. They weren't giving variants to anybody for issue 1. It was only issue 2. So that job, unfortunately, had the plug pulled on it. But I was super excited because it's a Jeff Lemire book.
Yeah.
Another Canadian guy. And of course, what's the artist's name? It just slipped out of my head.
I love his Bloodshot Salvation, by the way. If anybody listening has not checked that out, if you want to get a great idea who a character is, Bloodshot the movie came out right before that. Jeff Lemire did a take on the character, and I mean, this is a character not a lot of people know about, and he makes him relevant and just like so great.
Such a clever guy, that guy. Just an unbelievable brain in his head. Like I was super bummed out I didn't get to do that, but you know what? It's been months and I still can't believe I even did a Swamp Thing. Like, I still can't believe it happened. Like, it's still, to me, like such an unbelievable dream come true. And it just came out of nowhere. And I mean, it didn't really come out of nowhere, because I've been drawing Swamp Thing fairly steadily for about 5 years. My grandfather passed away in 2016, and it really kind of messed my head up with grief, and I found I was kind of lost in terms of my creative mind, and I wasn't really sure I couldn't really find my heart again. I was really, really destroyed by his death, and for whatever reason, I sat down, I just started doodling, and the Swamp Thing showed up on the page, and it was like he came to me to be like I don't know, like the patron saint of grief, and he showed up every day, and I would just draw the Swamp Thing, and I reconciled my loss by drawing Swamp Thing. And so all of a sudden people were like, you're kind of really good at drawing Swamp Thing. You should keep drawing Swamp Thing. Like, I mean, I don't know how, like, and then I started drawing them. I started doing commissions of Swamp Thing and just big drawings of them. And I was a little bit more healed every time. So for me, Swamp Thing is medicine, like really is medicine for my brain and for my heart. And yeah, the fact that I got a chance to draw a Swamp Thing cover for real, and the DC was so cool. Like, everyone at DC was so cool, and I wanted to do like a classic standalone, like iconic image of Swamp Thing, and I said, wouldn't it be cool to be able to throw that old retro DC Bullet logo in the corner and throw the old retro graphics, like the trade dressing on them? Like, wouldn't that be sweet? And the editor was like, oh man, the legal department will never go for that, but I'll float it past them and see what happens. And then of course, when the book comes out, I see it and it's got the old 80s Bullet, and I was just like, it was almost as sweet as just doing the job itself, seeing that beautiful cover. And yeah, man, it was I still get goosebumps thinking about it. It was a very, very cool experience. And if it never happens again, well, man, it was a good time. You never know what's around the corner, right? And I know that I tried to impress some people there. I tried to make everyone know that I came in a week early, you know what I mean, on my deadline. Like I did 15 options for them instead of just handing in one sketch and just going with it. Like, I gave them a fully expanded, like, we could go in these directions. What do you want me to do? I want to do anything, all of it, whatever. I basically said, what if they had given me a 15 issue run of doing the 15 covers? And I said, let's just draw 15 covers.
Wow.
And let them pick the best one. And so they ended up picking the first one that I went with, which was the one I kind of knew they were going to go for. And yeah, the whole experience was wonderful. Yeah, it's a strange thing.
Did you have to deal with Jim Lee at all?
Nope, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. Nope. I didn't actually get to deal with any major creators that I knew. Everyone was just really, really cool. I recognized some of the names, like in the accounting department and different people who, because that was the thing, like signing up to do a DC book. You know, it's funny. Years ago, a good friend of mine got a gig drawing Green Arrow, and you know, we were young back then. This is going back, 20 years. And I said, like, man, how did you get a gig drawing Green Arrow? Like, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. How amazing is that? And he's like, well, the trick about working for DC is you got to already be working there. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you got to be on the roster. That's the only way to get more work. You got to be on the roster somehow. And for him, he had done a fill-in. He had inked a guy's page. A friend of his was drawing a book for DC and was behind schedule. And he got my buddy to ink a page for him. But because he inked that page, he had to be entered in as a creator, and therefore he became entered into the talent roster.
Like the bullpen, huh?
At that point, anyone could come in and be like, yeah, I want that guy to draw my book, and just pick him like off a shelf, basically. And all of a sudden he's drawing stuff. So that was the big thrill for me. It was not even so, I mean, drawing Swamp Thing obviously was the creme de la creme, but the real amazing thing that happened out of that was just being added to the roster, just being a part of the roster. Suddenly was like, I just feel like everything's changed since then. Like, it's just in a strange kind of awesome way. Like I'm getting invited to all these shows now and stuff. And a lot of them I can't do, unfortunately, because of, travel restrictions and whatnot. But it's just an amazing thing. It's an incredible feather to have in my cap.
Absolutely. Have you been tempted to do a Swamp Thing and Last Ronin crossover art?
Man, yeah, I've done a couple of funny mashups. I did you might have saw it bounce around the internet. I did a Wolverine versus Last Ronin piece. I was doing these. No, it's around there somewhere. You might be able to Google search it. I don't know. It went around a little bit. There's a live Montreal Comic-Con does a live auction show once a month or a couple times a month, and they sometimes have an artist come on, and I came on, and it was right when Ronin came out, and they were really excited for me. They're like, you want to draw Last Ronin? We were thinking maybe like Wolverine, but did you want to draw Last Ronin instead? And I'm like, why don't I draw Wolverine and Last Ronin fighting? And they were like, oh my God. So anyway, that piece went viral and went crazy, and that was a lot of fun. The most viral piece I've done, though, weirdly, was for the same show. It was the week before. I drew the Turtles fighting Jason, which you may have seen that.
That I've seen. Yeah, that was pretty great.
That is my most viewed piece of artwork ever, which is so crazy to me because I drew it in 3 hours during a live show, sweating with a camera on me going, oh my God, I got to get this thing done. I got to draw all 4 turtles and a big Jason, and yeah, it was a blast. So, that was a really fun piece. But yeah, I get it shared every day. Someone else is sharing it on Instagram still. And it's been over a year since I did it. So it's kind of funny.
That's awesome. Do you have any dream projects other than working on Swamp Thing, obviously? But,
well, like my favorite character of all time is Ben Grimm. The Thing from Marvel. I mean, he's just kind of always been my go-to guy. Like,
I wish I still had my statue right next to me. I had the Ben Grimm, Randy Bowen statue where he's chomping on the guitar. I had the cigar. I had it like right here. I just brought it upstairs.
Oh, I love it, man. Yeah, no, The Thing's always been my guy. I'm not really sure why. I think I don't know. I mean, I was a bit of a misfit kid, and I always kind of felt like The Thing was, if I was having a bad day, I knew The Thing was probably out there somewhere having an even worse day than me,
That's fair.
So he was always kind of my guy. Like back in those days, if Marvel wanted to take a shit on a character, it was either Peter Parker or it was Ben Grimm. One of those guys was having a bad day. And those are my 2 favorite guys at Marvel. So, but The Thing was just always special to me. And so a chance to draw The Thing in any capacity would be just incredible. And the ironic thing was, I'm sitting there doing my first signing for Swamp Thing at my old childhood, local comic shop in St. Catharines when I was, I used to shop there when I was a kid. I don't live there anymore, but I knew that was going to be my first stop if I was going to start doing signings for Swamp Thing. It was
so cool.
First shop. And I went there and I'm sitting there and I'm like, what do I see on the shelf? What am I looking at on the shelf? And sure enough, The Thing has started. There's a new Thing series at Marvel. And I was like, damn, like I want to be doing a Thing cover next, but Marvel's kind of a tough nut to crack. So we'll see, maybe one day. But yeah, I mean, a chance to draw the Thing in any capacity would be just an incredible thing. It's funny. I really enjoy doing covers, and I didn't know how much I was going to enjoy drawing the Turtles until I had to do it. And after that, I was like, I want to do this all the time. Like I feel like I could probably tell a pretty cool turtle story. So maybe when Dodge is wrapped up, like we got a couple more issues of Dodge to go. If I decide I want to make comics, I think I might shoot for things like that. I don't know. I saw Kevin Eastman did a Ben Grimm cover recently.
Yes, yeah.
And I was all lit up by that. I was like, oh,
it looks so good too.
It looks so good too.
Yeah.
I know. So
he's got that Kirby aspect where it's like you look and it's like he just like throwing dots out there and you're like, they're not arbitrary. Like
it's love, right? It's just, I mean, that's the whole thing. Like I had a conversation with Ben Bishop about this, like just the honor of being attached to the Turtles franchise in any small way. I can't possibly overstate how incredible that is and how blessed I feel, especially going back through my history, thinking back to a little kid in 1984 at E.I. McCully Public School in St. Catharines, running around, with Turtles, black and white Turtles comics in our hands, like, the alternative to Marvel and DC at the time. We had just watched The Flash die, when Crisis on Infinite Earths, and we were reeling from Barry Allen's death, and then someone brought a Turtles comic to recess, and we were all like, what? Ninjas and blood and brutal violence, and we were just like, what is this amazing stuff? So, yeah, getting a chance to draw Jennika was interesting. That was I didn't know Jennika. I had to read all about her before I got the gig, but just knowing that it was a Turtles thing and being able to draw the Turtles in any way was a huge thing. And man, you wouldn't believe the weird hate mail I got from Turtles fans over there.
Really?
Oh yeah. I think people weren't ever prepared for Jennika to be a part of the Turtles universe. And I mean, I know I'm a purist when it comes to my comics too. And I like the 4 original guys, but you know what? I don't care. This book has grown and evolved over 30 or 40 years now. Like this is no joke. Like this is a real institution in comics now, and it's a major success story. So I had some guy contact me like, Mr. Rooth, you've ruined my childhood. This drawing of this female turtle disgusts me, and you should be ashamed. And I'm like, hold on, man. I just got a variant cover gig. This is just work. I didn't have anything to do in the hand of creating Jennika. I'm not ruining your childhood. My favorite was a guy who contacted me and said, well, I haven't read a Turtles comics in 25 years, but this wounds me deeply to my soul. And I said to the guy, if you haven't read a Turtles comic in 25 years, I don't think you get to have a vote on how it makes you feel. You know what I mean? This is nonsense.
We had Bram Ravel on the show. So, I mean, like, the writer and the guy who fleshed out her backstory and I mean, shy of Tom Waltz, she's like that's his character,
Yep.
And I mean, it's such a good story. And I don't get like the hate on something like that because it's a circumstance where it's like, read the story, find out what's going on.
Yeah.
Why is she, running away from a guy who's like in a vampire bat and, another guy's a weasel? Like, what's going on there? And then you get to the story now and it's like, as a purist, you wouldn't have Rocksteady and Bebop.
Exactly.
And it's like they make everything so much better because then Jennika, well, what are you going to do? They could fight for the 100th time, or they could have a battle of the bands, which they did, which was friggin' amazing. I thought it was so cool. And again, everybody doesn't love it, but it's fresh, it's different, and it fleshes out characters that you thought you knew for forever.
The big one was on my Jennika cover. She's facing off. She's lowered and ready to fight, and there's a character walking into the scene. It's a bear. It looks like a bear with all the headbands tied around his arm. And so I had the 4 brothers' headbands tied around this bear's arm. Right now, I'm drawing a comic book about a bear. It takes place in Siberia. So for me, it was like a little nod to Dodge. And even Matt, he's like, "Hey, was that a nod to Dodge?" I'm like, "It was," because no one at that point had heard of Dodge. But the weird emails I were getting was like, okay, who's this bear character? And furthermore, if this bear character could beat the turtles, I'm pretty sure Jenica wouldn't be the last one alive. And I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. Just give me a break here, man. Like,
It's far easier to like things than to like tear them down and like just go with the flow. If you don't like
dollar. Like you haven't bought a Turtles comic in 25 years. What do you care? Like just go and buy something else, man. Go get some ice cream. Chill out, man. Like,
get some ice cream. I love that. That's
Look,
Mike Rooth says, get some ice cream. Just
look, if anybody should be mad at anybody, it should be at Ben Bishop. Okay. I'm just saying. If anybody should be mad about people dealing with the turtles, it should be Ben Bishop because he killed my favorite one, the first one, and then he's killing off everybody else.
Yep.
So if anybody wants to be mad, they can be mad at Ben Bishop. Just saying.
That hurt Ben Bishop too. I know it did. Like I know it hurt him. He was, what an amazing gig to get. But at the same time, well, it's like my friend Corey Smith drew the issue when Donatello gets murdered. And he was like, dude, when I drew that book, you had no idea how much hate mail I got from people because they were like, okay, it's fine. You had to draw, Donatello get murdered. But did you have to make it so brutal? Did you have to make it so awful? And Corey's like, well, what did you want? Like, what kind of an ending did you want? Like, to draw a turtle getting ripped apart, I had to research how turtle soup is made, okay? He goes, I didn't enjoy looking at those photos, but I had to draw this book. I had to draw and make you remember that, Donatello got butchered to death. And it was awful, and it was a terrible thing, but the hate mail he got, he said he couldn't believe it. Like, he could kind of understand it, but he was like, shit, like, this is crazy,
Yeah.
That was issue 44, and I mean that was like 12. I don't know how many years ago it was. It was a good amount of years ago.
A little while ago, yeah, like 2013-ish, maybe around.
Yeah, because the book came out in 2011. I want to think. Yeah.
Yeah, and something like that. Yeah, just crazy.
That's great. Eric, you were saying something.
Yeah, I was just saying, you can't make everybody happy, and it's unfortunate, but I mean, if you don't like it, that's fine. I mean, there's no reason to send, hate mail to people. I mean,
yeah, don't waste your time.
It just doesn't make any sense,
We're just work for hire guys, man. If I was on the creative team that decided it was going to be this way, then you can hate me then. But I'm just a dude. I'm just a guy in a lineup doing Turtles artwork and feeling lucky to have the chance to do it. Like that's it, I was celebrating. I didn't know I was going to make people so mad drawing a girl turtle.
I don't listen to people that are hating. I just move on and you do what you do, man. Like
that's it.
Me personally, like I said, I love your artwork. I really do.
Thank you.
Like you give me the old school feeling of the Turtles.
Oh yeah.
So
it means a lot, honestly. It's when the old Turtles fans come to me and tell me that. I don't know. I don't know that I've ever figured out the perfect way to draw a turtle yet. I feel like I'm getting there.
Everybody has their way.
That's what I mean. You know what I mean? Some guys they just draw the turtle that way. But I've been trying to I got some old action figures that I keep around my desk. I got like an old Michelangelo around here somewhere. And here he is.
I got a couple.
You know what I mean? He's got all of his gear is gone, but just having something like that on my desk is just such an amazing, like it's a circle closing. You know what I mean? It's kind of a beautiful thing. Like having this toy when I was 12 and whatever it was. Like I guess I was older than that. But
there you go. He's got a couple here.
Oh dang. Yeah, and now my mom, of course, she thinks this is all so cool, like her middle-aged son drawing Ninja Turtles and stuff. So wow. she anything Turtles that she finds, she buys for me, including these. I'll show you guys on screen here.
Oh, nice.
Where is it?
In the meantime, we're going to look at that awesome artwork on your wall that looks like. Did you say you had a Frazetta up there?
Oh yeah, I got some Frazettas up. I've got actually right behind me here is my rough sketch. Well, a printout of my rough sketch for let's see here. This is actually my rough transfer of the Last Ronin number
Oh
5.
my God.
God.
That's fantastic.
So what this is, the pencils were done. Oh, I don't know. They were done a little bit on they were done a little bit on the computer, a little bit by hand. I try to do mostly stuff like all traditional. So what I do is the original art for this, I just sold it, but it's massive. And so I had to print out 2 11x17s and tape them together. And then it's the drawing blown up and then printed in 2 halves and then taped together. And then what I do is on the back, can't really tell on the people listening won't be able to see, but I basically rub the back of the paper with a charcoal and make it nice and smooth, and then I flip it over and lay it down on my actual illustration board, and then I draw over my lines and I press through the paper, and it leaves a transfer on the board that I can erase and correct as I go. So you end up with a really, really nice, clean, finished piece of artwork.
Oh, wow.
So this is just actually like a weird, dirty thing in my house right now that's on the wall, but yeah. If one of you guys wants that, I could let you arm wrestle for it if you want. It's kind of a dirty, like I said, it's not the kind of thing that might not look really nice in a frame, but I can clean it up for you and send it your way if you want.
Holy smokes, man!
The trash otherwise, because it's really just
yeah.
Really
we would definitely like that.
Oh yeah,
I just can't even believe that we got to see something like that.
Yeah, that is wow. Like I got cold chills.
Wow, that's amazing, Mike. And I mean,
that's a small thing.
Oh wow!
And
yeah, that's fantastic.
Somewhere,
are you keeping some of this stuff for yourself, or are you just like it's my own artwork?
It's a funny thing. Like there's a lot of artwork I wish I had kept, but thankfully, with the exception of one piece, all my Turtles artwork has gone to people that I love.
That's cool.
Justin has my Jenica cover because that was the first job we did together. So I made sure he got that one.
That's great.
My Ronin number 1, a big collector in my hometown, he had to have it. So I made a deal with him. This guy kept my lights on while COVID was shutting everything down. And he was really there for me when things were starting to look pretty dark at the beginning there of 2020. My issue 4, I didn't have a great experience selling that artwork, but my issue 5 I just sold to a collector who is a big fan of the Turtles and a big fan of mine, so I was happy to see it go to him. And that was the thing, like I don't always let the highest bidder get the piece. For me, I want someone who actually appreciates the content to get it, and I don't mind even if I lose $1,000 on the sale. I don't mind if the person who is going to get it I know loves it and wants it for what it is and not for what they can get for it down the road. Because I see stuff get all the time, right? Like, when they launched issue 5 last week, like they only printed 600 of mine, but they printed 1,000 of the other guys, and like when Bartling's, and he did a beautiful job on his as well. Like I just loved his cover, but like his sold out in 2 hours because people were buying them 30 and 40 copies at a time. Whereas mine, like we did 600 of mine, but we sold them to like 300 people. So it's one of those things where I feel like the people who wanted mine really wanted mine for them. Like they wanted to have it for them. You know what I mean? Whereas a lot of people are buying stuff just to, well, you see it. I mean, the launch wasn't even 2 hours old before the first ones of Bartlings were showing up on eBay for $400 and $500.
I think we had him on the show right before he could officially announce it. So
right.
Eric is Mr. Inside Knowledge guy. He's like, so when you release it, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more. And he's like, I don't know, guys. We're like, we know.
You know what's so funny, man? All the guys that I know who worked on Ronin, everyone out there assumes that we knew what was going on, and we didn't know what was going on. Like, I didn't know who the Last Ronin was until I read issue 1, when it was in my hands after it came out. I had no idea.
Crazy.
And everyone's like, you must know. Who is it, Mike? Tell me who it is. And I'm like, I don't know. Yes, you do. I'm like, I don't know. I honestly don't know. It was a really weird thing to sit on for a while, for sure.
That's so cool, though, that like at your level and you have the same sort of fan experience. I had the same conversation with Freddie Williams the second, and he was just like, I had no clue. I had no clue. And we were just like going on about it. And he's like, everybody's asking me, and everyone's, hey, do you know? He's like, and finally I just had to cut him off and be like, I don't know. And I issued a public statement. I'm like,
yeah. I had high school friends going, okay, so you're working for Turtles now. Tell me who it is. I'm like, I
Wow.
can't tell you. Go and buy the comic book. I'm not. Well, you haven't called me in 20 years, and now you want to know who the last turtle is? Come on.
Hey, I get
don't
that
even
too,
know.
because everyone knew it in high school that I was into comics and all that. Hey, the new Marvel movie's coming out. What's going on? I'm like, who is this?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I'm like, we went to a big enough school. You don't have to search me out, man.
That's funny, eh?
I'm like, I only read indies. That's that's crazy. That's great. But I think with that, I mean, I just wanted to say, awesome to have you. Everybody needs to check you out at Uncouth Ruth on Twitter, on Instagram, MikeRooth.BigCartel.com, MikeRooth.com. Anything else that we should be checking out? Maybe your Kickstarter for Dodge.
Yeah, so if you follow me on Instagram, you'll hear more information about Dodge coming soon. But the one big shout out I'd love to give, there's actually two. I'd love to give a shout out to Tommy Law and the boys at Yellow Snow Comics, and also
nice, yeah,
and also Chris Spencer at Wicked Gator, for giving me the amazing opportunity to work on issues 4 and 5. They locked me in for 4 and 5 the first moment they were able to do that, and I was just so incredibly honored to be. I mean, I was still reeling from the fact that I had done number 1, and then to get asked to do number 4 and 5, I was like, I felt incredibly blessed, and I do really appreciate those guys. So definitely go and support YellowSnowComics.com and support WickedGatorComics.com. But my heart and soul right now belong to Justin Steves, who run Big Country Comics. That guy has completely transformed my life and given me opportunities that I'll never be able to repay him for. He was the one that got me my first Turtles gig doing that Jenica book, and then I feel like things just kind of exploded in my life after that. He's the guy that brought me the opportunity at DC Comics. He's the guy that's got me the, Department of Truth and the Ice Cream Man stuff, and some even more exciting stuff that's coming up in the new year. So anyone listening to this wants to go to BigCountryComics.com. You can see all of my stuff there. Justin's an excellent guy, a hardworking guy, and I just love him, and I love his people, and support his shop. And he's a small retailer out of Canada. But he's doing incredible stuff, and he's a great businessman, and just a wonderful guy. So BigCountryComics.com. That's where, if you're going to spend any money on me, go and spend it over at his shop, because he's got everything I've done in the past 2 years, and he's just a wonderful guy.
Oh, great, because I need to get that Jenica cover, so
yeah,
I'll have to check it out. That's awesome. That's so great.
For sure.
Yeah,
well, thank you very much for having me,
now.
man. This is a blast. I don't get to do this kind of thing very often, where it's just a nice chat. Usually everyone wants me to draw for charity or things like that. So, but yeah, when this is over, send me your address. I'll mail you guys some of these. If you want them, I can send you some of this scrap artwork that I've got here, because they're really just pieces that make the final art. But, they're going to end up in the trash can. So I'd rather them go to someone who might have some appreciation for them.
Oh my God.
Well,
are you serious?
before Eric and I explode, I'm going to take a pause here, and then folks listening, I'll be right back with your pizza recipe of the day.
Hey there, Turtle fans. Check out BigCountryComics.com for the exclusives and variants that you're looking for, featuring the art of Mike Rooth and Hugh Rookwood. You can find graded books, Funko Pops and figures, statues, even Big Country Comics exclusives, books from Aftershock, Boom, Image, DC Comics, IDW, everything from Swamp Thing to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle covers. You can get them raw, remarked, signed, even slabbed, available at BigCountryComics.com. Don't forget, buy one, get one 50% off on graded books. And dudes, be sure to use our code EPICSHELL for an extra 15% off of your order. Check out BigCountryComics.com.
And now, in a segment that we call Pizza Time, where we discuss any Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle or pizza-related food, I give you Pizza Time.
It's pizza time.
Hi, everyone. This week's Pizza Time is a recipe reminiscent of our friend from the Great White North. It is called Snowmageddon. This recipe makes one 12-inch pizza. Creamy white sauce with ricotta cheese makes this white pizza an ooey-gooey favorite at pizza shops all over the country. Here's the ingredients that you'll need. Cornmeal or flour for dusting. Extra virgin olive oil for brushing, drizzling, and greasing. 1 cup of ricotta cheese. 1 teaspoon chopped fresh oregano, or 1/2 teaspoon dried. Salt and freshly ground black pepper. 1 pound pizza dough ball, homemade, and 1/2 to 2/3 cup white pizza sauce. Instructions: baking stone or on a steel pizza peel. Place your baking stone on the middle rack of the oven and preheat to 500 degrees Fahrenheit for at least 30 minutes. Then turn the oven to broil. Dust the pizza peel or inverted baking sheet with a cornmeal or flour. On your baking sheet, preheat the oven to 500 degrees Fahrenheit with a rack in the middle position. Lightly coat in a heavy-duty rimmed baking sheet with olive oil. Step 1. In a small bowl, mix together the ricotta and the oregano, seasoned to taste with salt and pepper. Step 2. Stretch or roll the dough onto a 12-inch disc and place it on the prepared pizza peel or baking sheet. Step 3. Spread the pizza sauce on the dough, leaving 1/2-inch border all around. Spoon dollops of ricotta mixture all over the pizza. Brush the exposed dough with olive oil. Step 4. Shimmy the dough from the peel to the hot baking stone or transfer to the baking sheet to the oven. Bake until the crust is golden and the cheese is just beginning to brown in spots. About 6 to 8 minutes on the baking stone, 10 to 15 minutes on the baking sheet. Step 6. Remove the pizza from the oven and let it cool for 5 minutes. Finish with a light drizzle of olive oil and a pinch of salt and a grind or two of black pepper. Slice and serve, bros.
Thank you for listening to the Epic Tales from the Sewers podcast. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were created by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. This podcast has no affiliation with Eastman, Laird, IDW Studios, Nickelodeon Studios, Archie Comics, or any other Turtles properties. This podcast is a member of the Epic Sewers podcast network. Be sure to check out our other great shows, some turtle-related, some not. Thanks for listening. Epic Tales from the Sewers is recorded by Justin Cooper.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. We have very active lifestyles. It's not all wandering the countryside aimlessly or scaring passing motorists. And we all love a good cup of joe. And there's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. Bold, robust, delicious. It's coffee that can wake the dead. With over a dozen different roasts and flavors, Deadly Grounds can satisfy the most finicky of coffee addicts. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
Hey there, this is JB, and if you enjoyed Tales from the Crypt, then check out my show, Tales from the Podcast, where myself, and usually a very special guest, sit down to discuss the TV show, the films, the animated series, as well as the original comics. So check me out every other week on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, and of course at talesfromthepodcast.com.
Thanks for listening, kiddies. You're all a scream.